What if I told you that every dollar in your wallet is a promise that can never truly be kept? That no matter how hard you work or how high your country's GDP rises, the world's total debt can never be repaid, because it's designed that way. Today, we're diving into a mystery hidden in plain sight. Why does the world owe over $300 trillion when there's only around $60 trillion in actual money? And more importantly, who benefits from keeping you, your country, and even the planet itself trapped in endless debt? Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never see money, banks, or economic growth the same way again. To understand how we got here, we have to go back, not decades, but centuries, to the moment money stopped being just a tool of trade and became a weapon of control. It started in 1694, with the creation of the Bank of England, the first central bank designed to lend money to a government in exchange for perpetual interest. Here's the trick. Instead of creating wealth through labor or goods, the government simply borrowed it. The bank printed notes, IOUs, and loaned them at interest. The people paid it back through taxes. And with that one deal, the foundation of modern debt slavery was born. Cut to visuals: old printing presses, British Parliament, gold coins replaced by paper notes. For the first time, money was debt, not value. Every pound created meant someone, somewhere, owed it back, plus more. And since the interest didn't exist yet, new debt had to be created to pay the old one. A self-feeding machine. Endless debt chasing endless growth. Fast forward to 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve in the United States. A private banking system that mirrored the Bank of England model, but on a global scale. The US government could now borrow from the Fed, which printed dollars out of thin air and lent them at interest. The more the government borrowed, the more dollars existed, and the deeper the public debt grew. Sound of money printing. Montage of early 20th century Wall Street scenes. But this wasn't chaos. It was design. Banks realized that debt wasn't a flaw in the system. It was the system. During the Great Depression, the economy collapsed not because money ran out, but because the flow of debt stopped. When loans weren't being created, money literally disappeared from circulation. In this system, no loans, no money. And no money. Panic, unemployment, collapse. It was a perfect demonstration of control. Whoever creates and regulates debt controls the lifeblood of society. For a long time, the illusion of balance was maintained by gold. Every dollar was backed by a certain amount of it. That meant money couldn't be printed without limit. But in 1971, something historic happened. President Richard Nixon announced that the US would no longer back the dollar with gold. Cut to archival footage. Nixon's closing the gold window speech. With a single statement, money lost all physical anchor. It became pure debt. A digital promise with no ceiling, no brakes, no intrinsic value. And once again, the system evolved. Governments borrowed to fund wars. Corporations borrowed to expand. Consumers borrowed to survive. Every layer of society stacked upon the same unstable foundation: credit. The more we borrowed, the richer the lenders became. The global economy wasn't growing on productivity. It was inflating on IOUs. By the 1980s, the Western debt model spread worldwide through the IMF, World Bank, and other development institutions. Poor countries were offered massive loans for infrastructure, modernization, or stabilization. But hidden in the fine print were conditions: privatization, austerity, currency control. When nations couldn't repay, they were forced to sell their industries, their land, even their public services, often to the very institutions that lent them the money. Montage: protests in Latin America, African leaders signing IMF deals, currency crashes. This wasn't charity. It was economic colonization through spreadsheets instead of soldiers. And the result? A world where the poorest nations pay more in interest each year than they receive in aid. The global South became trapped in debt chains, invisible, legal, and endlessly tightening. Every time the system reached breaking point, the solution was the same. Print more money. Create more debt. The 2008 financial crisis should have been the wake-up call. Banks gambled trillions on synthetic debt products and lost. But instead of letting the system reset, governments bailed out the very institutions that caused it. Cut to footage of Occupy Wall Street protests, stock tickers, and government press conferences. Trillions were created overnight, not to pay the people, but to save the lenders. Once again, private debt became public burden. Then came 2020. The pandemic response injected another $20 trillion globally in stimulus. Money created from nothing. Inflation soared, debt exploded, and the cost of living crisis swept across the world. By 2025, global debt had passed $315 trillion, roughly 3.5 times the world's GDP. It's mathematically impossible to repay. But here's the twist. It's not supposed to be repaid. The system doesn't need settlement. It needs dependency. Every time you swipe a card, take a loan, or pay taxes, you're feeding the same cycle. Debt creates money. Money creates debt. And someone, somewhere, collects interest on both. Look around. History isn't just repeating, it's compounding. Household debt has reached record highs. Student loans exceed $1.7 trillion in the US alone. Corporate borrowing is higher than ever, even among companies that never make a profit. And sovereign debt, from Japan to Italy to the US, is ballooning faster than tax revenues can grow. The numbers don't lie. We've built a civilization that needs perpetual borrowing just to stay alive. It's like running on a treadmill that never stops, faster every year, just to keep from falling. And the banks? They profit either way. Whether you win or lose, spend or save, boom or bust, they earn interest on the motion itself. That's why inflation doesn't scare them. That's why crises are opportunities. Because in this system, debt, sheer power, and control of debt means control of humanity. So what can we take from this story? A tale 3 centuries in the making. First, debt is not just an economic tool. It's a political one. Whoever controls the issuance of credit controls the future itself. Second, every financial crisis, every inflation wave, every stimulus is not a bug. It's a reset, keeping the debt machine running, while ordinary people pay the cost in higher prices and lower freedom. Third, true wealth isn't measured in money, but in independence from debt. The less you owe, the less you can be controlled. Pause. Somber music. But here's the warning. The next great shift, digital currencies, programmable money, AI-driven financial systems, could make this chain unbreakable. If the power to issue, track, and limit money becomes centralized under digital control, then financial dependence becomes total obedience. The question isn't how much the world owes. It's who owns the debt, and who owns you. If this story opened your eyes, don't let it end here. Learn how money is really created. Question what debt truly means. Because the first step to freedom is seeing the chains that were designed to be invisible. First, if you want to understand the next chapter, where digital currencies, central banks, and AI-powered economies might take us, subscribe, share this video, and join me as we uncover the hidden architecture of global control. Because the story of money is really the story of power.